I never used to believe in superstition or bad luck. Black cats walking under ladders, broken mirrors. It all seemed like silly nonsense to me. I was a woman of science, pursuing my PhD in quantum physics. The universe operated according to immutable physical laws, not old wives' tales. At least that's what I thought. It started on an ordinary Tuesday morning as I rushed to catch my flight to the big physics conference in Geneva. I was running late, my mind focused on rehearsing my presentation, when a black blur streaked across my path. I nearly tripped over the skinny black cat that seemed to appear out of nowhere.
Dumb cat.
I muttered, regaining my balance. I made it to my gate just as they were closing the doors. 2 hours into the transatlantic flight, the captain made an announcement. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm afraid we're experiencing some mechanical issues. As a precaution, we'll be making an emergency landing in Halifax. Great, I thought. I'm going to miss the opening session of the conference. But it was just one of those things. Inconvenient, but hardly a catastrophe. Certainly nothing to do with crossing paths with a stray cat. While waiting for the airline to book me on another flight, I decided to grab lunch. As I settled at a table with my sandwich and coffee, movement caught my eye. A sleek black cat was weaving between the tables, begging for scraps. I shooed it away. One black cat sighting could be chance, but two felt unsettling. I eventually made it to Geneva, but between the diverted flight and a missing suitcase, I showed up to the conference tired, rumpled, and irritable. My talk on supersymmetry was a disaster. I stumbled over my words, my slides were out of order, and I could barely answer the audience questions. Shame burned my cheeks as I slunk out of the auditorium. Seeking fresh air and solace, I took a walk along Lake Geneva. The soothing slap of waves against the rocky shore and snow-capped mountains in the distance eased my mind. I was just being silly, I told myself. My travel mishaps and botched presentation had nothing to do with black cats. It was confirmation bias, reading meaning into random events. As if summoned by my thoughts, a slinky black shape materialized on the path ahead of me. The cat regarded me with luminous green eyes before slowly crossing in front of me and vanishing into the bushes. An involuntary shiver ran down my spine. 3 black cats in one day, but I quickly dismissed the thought. There was no such thing as bad luck. The next morning, I awoke to several missed calls and frantic text messages from my sister Kate. With trembling hands, I called her back. "Jess, thank God," she sobbed. "There's been an accident. Tom, he's in critical condition. You need to come home right away." The flight back to Boston passed in a surreal blur. Tom, my baby brother, had been hit by a drunk driver while walking home from his college library. The doctors weren't sure if he'd make it through the night. Sitting in the stark white ICU waiting room, my gaze fell on a vase of wilting flowers by the nurse's station. Curled up next to it was a black cat, watching me with cryptic orange eyes. A strangled gasp escaped my lips. My mom squeezed my hand. "Jessie, the doctor is here." I looked up into the surgeon's grave face and knew. Tom was gone. My beautiful, brilliant little brother, my partner in mischief and mayhem growing up, had slipped away. Couldn't be real. It had to be a nightmare I would soon wake up from. But I didn't wake up. Through the funeral, as I woodenly accepted condolences from a parade of relatives and friends, it remained a waking nightmare. I kept catching glimpses of black cats out of the corner of my eye, slinking behind tombstones, peering out from under parked cars. But when I turned to look straight on, they vanished like wisps of smoke. Was it just my unraveling mind, or some dark omen mocking my grief? I returned to Geneva in a fog, going through the motions of completing my research and writing my dissertation. But the fire that had fueled my fascination with untangling the mysteries of the universe had flickered out. What did it matter, unlocking the secrets of spacetime and subatomic particles, in the face of death's cruel absurdity? Science couldn't give me my brother back. One gray winter morning, I emerged from my apartment to find a black cat sitting on the front steps, waiting. It stood and crossed my path with deliberate slowness, green eyes drilling into mine, before sauntering off. 5 black cats, a full hand of bad luck. I made it to the tram stop before I realized I had forgotten my wallet. Sighing, I turned back, mulling superstitions about black cats as I walked. It was silly, but the creeping sense of unease was harder to shake off these days. Rounding the corner onto my street, I saw it, a sixth black cat perched on a garden wall. It stretched languorously and jumped down, landing in my path. I froze, my heart pounding wildly. 6 black cats. Something terrible was going to happen. I just knew it. I spent the rest of the day jumping at shadows, bracing for disaster. But the hours ticked by with nothing worse than a paper cut and a stubbed toe. I began to relax. I was being ridiculous, allowing magical thinking to unsettle me. There was no such thing as luck, good or bad. That evening, I curled up on the couch with a mug of tea and opened my laptop to check my email. A message from my advisor caught my eye. Dear Jessica, I'm writing with wonderful news. Your dissertation on supersymmetry has been selected for the prestigious Hawking Award. This is an extraordinary achievement and a testament to your brilliant work. You should be very proud. We'll discuss next steps at our meeting this week. Warmly, Dr. Hoffman. Tears pricked my eyes as a sense of validation and renewal washed over me. The first stirring of excitement about physics I'd felt in months glowed to life. Maybe the universe wasn't completely random and cruel. Maybe, just maybe, some cosmic force was at work after all. That faint spark of optimism carried me through the next day, until the 7th black cat sighting. I was walking along the Rhone River at dusk, turning over ideas for my new research project, when I nearly stumbled over a cat slinking out from under a park bench. 7, the holy number, the number of creation and completeness. Delight bubbled up inside me. Seeing 7 black cats felt auspicious, a sign my luck had turned. But the giddy feeling evaporated as I arrived back at my apartment to find the door slightly ajar. Cold dread wormed down my spine. Nudging the door open with my foot, I stifled a scream. My place had been ransacked, drawers yanked out, cushions slashed open, the contents of my desk dumped on the floor. I sank to my knees, sifting through the detritus of my life. My laptop was gone, along with the backup hard drive containing the only copy of my dissertation. Despair crashed over me in a suffocating wave. All my work lost. The Hawking Award slipping through my fingers. I had been foolish to think my luck had changed. Numb, I stumbled out into the night, not knowing where I was going. My feet carried me across a bridge as I stared unseeing at the black ribbon of the river below. A flicker of movement in my peripheral vision made me glance up. Perched on the railing down the way was a black cat, the 8th such sighting in under a week. A strangled laugh escaped me. Why not? With the loss of my life's work, what was one more bad omen? But as I approached, I realized it was 2 cats, not one. 2 jet black forms entwined together, a study in grace and twilight shadow. I drew nearer, and they turned to regard me with mirror-image green eyes. They seemed utterly unafraid, watching me with eerie calm. What do you want? My voice came out high and thin. You've already taken everything. The cats continued to stare, inscrutable. Suddenly, it clicked. 9 lives, 8 sightings down, 1 to go. I was caught in some morbid cosmic joke, a chain of escalating tragedies and random spite. Throwing back my head, I shouted at the night sky, "Is that all you've got? Why not bring on number 9 and finish the job?" Silence. Even the soft hush of the river faded away. The cats had vanished. Slowly, I became aware of a rushing sound, like a distant train approaching. I turned toward it and froze. Hurtling straight at me was an enormous black shape, far larger than any cat. It was the size of a panther, a sleek whirlwind of rippling obsidian fur and baleful orange eyes, eating up the distance between us with supernatural speed. I stood rooted to the spot, transfixed by the oncoming beast. Some detached part of my brain noted that big cats weren't black, but rather a very dark brown. And yet this creature was the color of a starless night, a yawning void racing toward me on silent paws. In the microsecond before it reached me, a flicker of clarity pierced my paralyzed consciousness. This was no mortal feline, but something else. A demon, a god, the living manifestation of fortune and misfortune. an avatar of the chaotic caprice that governed the universe, that tossed out blessings and tragedies with no discernible pattern. I felt the rush of displaced air, saw ivory fangs flashing, and knew nothing more. I awoke to buttery light warming my face and the distant trill of birdsong. Blinking gritty eyes, I pushed myself up to a seated position and looked around in confusion. I was in a hospital bed, my left arm in a soft cast. Gauzy curtains billowed at an open window, admitting a fragrant breeze. "Jess, thank God you're awake." Kate rushed to my bedside, her face blotchy and tear-stained. She clasped my hand. "What happened?" I croaked. "Where am I?" "Geneva University Hospital. You've been in and out of consciousness for 3 days. You gave us quite a scare, little sister." I shook my head, trying to make sense of fragmented memories. The black whirlwind, a sickening crunch, blinding pain. "What happened to me?" Kate's face crumpled. "You were hit by a car. The police said you walked right out in front of it, like you didn't even see it coming. It's a miracle you're not dead." An icy fist squeezed my heart as hazy recollections solidified. The 8 black cat sightings, tempting fate on that bridge. The 9th life hurtling toward me. Had it really happened, or had it been a concussed hallucination? "Your doctor said you'll make a full recovery," Kate continued, "and NASA called. Your dissertation was selected for the Juno Award. You'll be working at the Jet Propulsion Lab this summer." "Jess, you did it." Shock gave way to incandescent joy. The JPL was my dream job. I'd applied on a desperate whim right after losing my dissertation, not imagining I stood a chance. But somehow, despite it all, I'd been given a second chance. As Kate babbled on about my recovery timeline and the logistics of moving to California, a flicker of movement beyond the window caught my eye. On a branch of the flowering almond tree sat a cat, watching me. It was white as fresh snow from ears to tail tip, like a photo negative of the demon beast. As I met its sapphire gaze, it slowly blinked, and I felt a great sense of balance slot into place. Perhaps there was both method and madness in the workings of the universe. Perhaps luck, in the end, was nothing more or less than the human attempt to find meaning in the inherent unpredictability of cosmic forces far beyond our comprehension or control. Meaning we made through the stories we told ourselves. I settled back against the pillows as the white cat flicked its tail and darted off, a pale streak quickly swallowed by the radiance of the spring day. I didn't know what the future held: triumph, disaster, or more likely an unknowable mix of both. But I was filled with a sense of peace, a surrender to the riotous whims of fate. My story was not over. I had 9 lives yet to live,